that what he's...
I assumed that, so I'll start with me. I'm Charlie Fisher. I'm from an architecture cooperative called Transition by Design in Oxford. We're a workers' co-op and community interest company which focus around environmental and social justice work. It's the kind of angle that's slightly different from a normal architecture practice. See all these. And I assumed that the people that came before me would set a very good grounding for the concepts and the models. So I'm just going to try and fly through some slides of projects that I'm working on at the moment. All of them in process and all of them taking ages. So there'll be some themes that come through. But just starting about Oxford, you probably know there's kind of a very tight housing situation there. Land values are incredibly high. DCLG released some figures at the end of last year around some baselines, and we're currently at £5 million a hectare. For comparison, Bristol's £2.6 million a hectare, but growing much faster, Bristol, than Oxford. Oxford is very slow but very high, but nothing like Kensington and Chelsea, which is £130 million a hectare, and really crazy. And I just wanted, I don't know why all my text has changed, but I'm going to go through these three projects. They're all slightly different. One around an existing building, Victorian building, one about a community energy project which has led to housing projects, and the third one about a different approach, having seen some of the kind of barriers in the past. So this is the kind of standard grumpy community, angry about a developer trying to buy this old Victorian building. We got involved at an early stage a couple of years ago, in which we helped them put an asset community value on it. And I'll talk about that in the next slide about how useful it is. But we then helped them put together a bid, which was very quick and very messy, which very kind of just fleshed out how it could work and the possibilities for separating the spaces and how the community could benefit from it. And we placed that bid with a community land trust, the one that I'm part of in Oxfordshire, and got a lot of community support from it. The owner, who's the Church of England, decided not to go with our bid because we didn't offer maximum financial value as usual, and couldn't see a way out of it, even though we gave them the line that for charity law, and went with a big developer that could just cash buy. The community went crazy again, and the church has had to go back to their board and try and work out how they can maybe make something work. The developer offered one affordable house for a teacher as part of their deal, and we were offering a lot more. From that, we started trying to map out the assets of community value within the city, and we found that assets of community value aren't really useful without some of the financial and policy backing that is really required. The Localism Act gave these tools, but communities very rarely can follow through with it, and so communities, in our examples within the city, have put them on. It works as a great alarm trigger, so they can sort of sit back and then they'll find out when the community's up, the building's up for sale, but they never manage to get together to buy them. And so we're trying to kind of bring that forwards. The second project is one which is a lot different scale. It comes from through 1.25 million of Innovate UK funding into this community called Rose Hill, which is now in the bottom 10% of indices of multiple deprivation. It's been there for quite a long time, in the bottom 20. And it comes from that point of big funder, big project, trying out some new things. But we've come in as community organisers to try and work out how you can spend that money on building up the community within inside that. And so we've done projects in schools, building solar panels. We've set up, it's 100 homes, putting battery storage and solar panels into council houses and housing association properties, and linking it all by this virtual grid and this online system where people can check how they're sharing energy across an entire community. And as the success of these first properties, we've got almost 80 installed now. The schools got on board, the community centres got on board. We've facilitated a car share scheme through it, and so it's sort of growing as this kind of holistic project, which has now led to some housing projects potentially. This slide is about, so this is a project that I'm working on with Oxfordshire Community Land Trust in a voluntary capacity. This isn't our design, this is a Bristol architect. We're finding that projects go incredibly slowly because of the huge land costs, because of lack of capacity and skill within our communities that we've found. We know it's there, but in terms of being able to use it. This is a site for 6 flats within West Oxford. It's been going since, I'll skip to this one first. It's been going since the CLT was founded in 2004. This is house prices in Oxford. This is wages. You can't really see it on the bottom. Kind of skeleton on the bottom. We sort of got the option on this piece of land in the kind of second dip, and then everything started getting more expensive as we kind of pulled out of it. With last year being the time in March we were going to go to site. We were going through the same problems as Keith in that we were going to be forced to register with the HCA. That all fell through because of a land issue, so we didn't do that. But it meant that all of our funding, £1 million of funding, fell through as well. And so we're trying to build that up. So potentially construction this year is looking much better. The issue was with the Charity Commission. It was something that nobody wanted to happen, but it was an issue with lawyers. And we've managed to get through that 6 months of the Charity Commission. It was all fine. And so that led, tiny sites, little nibbles, really slow projects. That led to talking to a sustainability charity called Bioregional, who've been working with the last 5 years on the Bicester Ecotown, doing this kind of sustainability work, about how we can deliver affordability in communities, proper affordability, with citizen engagement under their One Planet framework. So how can you start to do things like Bedzed, which they finished in 2001, that's almost 100 homes built with One Planet aspirations, didn't quite get there, with various complications. They've got a One Planet community in Brighton, finished in 2006. Traditional kind of housing association developer partners, this isn't community-led design, although it's created what is great communities. We started to say, how can you create these great places that you create, but stop people being priced out that could really use living in homes with almost no fuel bills, and having these great kind of support networks that they've all got. And so we created this thing called OPAL, which stands for One Planet Affordable Living, and it's basically just been a research project for the last 6 months, hoping to build in a bigger way within the city, so to scale it up, to try, and this might be the contentious point that starts arguments, but to take on sites that are much bigger than communities would normally take on for the scales of economy, to get kind of bigger political buy-in, because in our situation no one wants to support us doing little things, they see us as niche. But if we can start to put forward solutions that bring in the affordability we're talking about, income-linked affordability, but cluster some of these little communities together, then there's kind of possibilities, and we've got various different delivery mechanisms that we're talking to the council about at the moment. And the first site, this is why I was late this morning, was putting a bid on this, which is an old community centre, which they wanted, the council want to sell off for, again, maximum financial value. It's worth around £500,000, and there's a kind of a lack of awareness of what the community solutions could offer here. They want to get £1 million for, is what they said to us, because land values are so high here that a developer will pay over the odds, and they're saying we can't compete with that. We've put a bid in this morning where we've managed to value all the extra benefits that come from the way we've done it, and we can get it up way beyond what a developer can do if they're taking into account the Social Value Act and lots of other things. So that's the first one, 24 units, using the mutual home ownership model. This is the big one. So this is the one that we've came on sale on the market 2 weeks ago. It's got outline planning for 190 homes. It's owned by Oxford University, so another charity to deal with in terms of charity law and their covenants. But we've got a kind of really good community coalition that we've formed through this OPAL project, where we've tried to get all the different community groups together in the city, all the co-ops that want to set up things, and to try and make a bid on something that is out of the scale that would usually be attempted. And we've got no idea whether or not we'll be able to pull this one off. But we've been working on this for 6 months, and so now is the next 5 weeks are the kind of really important time to work out whether or not we can pull specifically the finance together. And that's going to be the really tough one. If we don't get this one, we've set the kind of basis for potentially the next big project. Let's go through that one. And then this is a project we did at Oxford Co-Housing, who are part of the group for this bigger site. which we're still using this as a kind of vision aspiration because it applies to a lot of the projects we're working on anyway. And it's a fictional project that's pulled together on a mishmash of different community typologies across the years. So I think that's the final one was just some kind of extra policy suggestions. A new planning use class seems to be kind of bandied around quite a lot at the moment in order to try and do something that wouldn't cost any money but would have a big effect almost instantly, and maybe multiple bans, because I think the private rental sector is fighting over being a use class as well, to be an institutional asset class that pension funds and all sorts can start to get behind to mirror the student rental. Some kind of percentage base around bigger sites, so that there's a kind of forced way of building this kind of thing on sites that are significant and the councils have a statutory obligation to do something. That there's a requirement around land funds, and that all councils have to deliver land funds, deliver finance to groups, whether it be bridging loans or kind of long-term agreements, and something that's there for community groups to engage with rather than have to set up themselves. And then something that I wasn't sure whether it's happening at the moment already, but I know that wasn't the case last year, was social investment tax relief is exempted for housing. So if there was incentives for people to invest in things that, like in the same way that energy projects have, to do the same for housing, then there's potential for attracting more people to do share offers and bond issues and otherwise. So that's just 4, and I was just leaving it on this final one, which shows home ownership since 1983 onwards. And you quite clearly see that this green band is the home owning generation, and that they're disappearing. Their parents rented when renting was acceptable, and their children are now renting. That wage is getting stronger. So in terms of the kind of political mix going forwards, who's voting, who's trying to see change in the rental system, who might be seeing differences in this kind of world, I'm half optimistic, because what this might be is that we're getting back to the kind of early 20th century where 90% people renting and incredibly unequal, because these Greens are the ones renting out to the younger people. But maybe this means that we're moving to something where we decide that it's not fair, the existing system. That's all.
Thank you, Simon.